this was a conference about sexy startups and VC, so thank you for sticking around for something as maybe boring as the Mittelstand. I'll try to make this as interesting as possible. I want to start this with a little story. Did you know that Jeff Bezos, when he founded Amazon, he was already quite a successful person. And he was not on a shoestring budget like any other founder, but he was pretty successful. So why did a successful guy end up founding a company like Amazon? And it was because in 1994, he took a road trip from Seattle to New York, and he saw something out there. And that out there was pretty big. It was the internet. It had tremendous growth rates of over 2,000%, and he sat in his car on his road trip to New York and said, I need to put a boat into this river because this tide is rising. I want to be part of this development. And in my view, something big is happening out there again. It's not 1994, but it's 2024. And as you can guess, that big thing is, in my view, the advent of artificial intelligence. And I brought a couple of numbers because to put it a bit into perspective, this is the gain of market capitalization of a bunch of companies since November 2022. So why November 2022?
Launch of ChatGPT 3.0.
There we go. All right, you're my go-to guy. All right, I'll be coming back to you a couple times. So this is when ChatGPT was launched in November 2022, and NVIDIA, maybe put your hands up in the air if you're a stockholder of NVIDIA. And keep your, it doesn't count, and keep your hands in the air if you bought it before November 2022. All right, so any founders in the room, go to these guys. They might get you some angel investments for your startups. But this is tremendous, $2.8 trillion, Microsoft over $2 trillion, Google and stuff. I have a hard time fathoming these numbers, but if you put into perspective the total market cap of the German DAX, so that is not the increase, but that is the total value of Siemens, Daimler, Munich, Re, Telekom, all the companies that we know, Adidas, that are in the DAX. So you can think that only the gain of NVIDIA and Microsoft was, well, let's stick with NVIDIA, the money that NVIDIA gained since November 22 would allow them to purchase the whole DAX and then still have almost $1 trillion in their bank, which is a lot of money. So this is totally insane. And the German Mittelstand, which is a bit, well, way more difficult to evaluate because there's no market cap, but it clocks in at about 2 trillion, 1.7 trillion. It's already pretty high, but the value that is being generated here is tremendous. That's the message of the slide. So the question is, in my view, wait. Okay. Does it work? Ah, there we go. Oops. That's wrong. All right, so is there any link between AI, something big that is happening out there, and the German Mittelstand? That's the core question that I'm trying to answer with this little presentation. And what I want to share with you is I brought 4 problems that many Mittelstand companies, and maybe every large company has, and let's think about how AI might be a solution to these problems. A quick thing about myself. I was a product lead at Google a couple of years. Now the CEO of Oetker Digital, and I founded a small podcast called Digitale Optimisten. All right, let's dig into the first problem. The biggest problem that I think anyone needs to solve if you're in the German Mittelstand, this is not going to surprise you, is the lack of skilled personnel, Fachkräftemangel in German. The scale of this problem is growing totally out of proportion. This stat really was super staggering for me. Oops, why doesn't it show? There you go. So 15 years ago, 10% of German companies said, I am a victim, I am Fachkräftemangel, the lack of skilled personnel is a problem for me, 10%. And there was a small dip with COVID when, quite frankly, no one hired, but that number is now up to 50%. So every second German company says, I just simply cannot find the right people for my job. And imagine if you're Zalando and have your headquarters in Berlin, that might not be such a big issue. But if you're a Mittelstands company, which might have ties to some rural area, This is a huge issue because how do you get people to come to your maybe little town? I see a couple of nods in the audience. So this is a huge issue. In the US, this is not only a German problem. In the US, the unfilled jobs have tripled since 2009. So this is, and we're, for the next 10 years, there's going to be 7 million people in Germany to leave the job market. So this is not going away, and it's going to be tremendous. All right, so what do we do about it? Let's maybe take a step back. What is AI in its fundamental idea? Let's go back to the past revolution, which was the Industrial Revolution. What we did there, we invested the combustion engine, the steam engine, and basically what we did is we said, we multiply your muscles, right? We could lift more, we could do things quicker, but in the end, it was a multiplication of your muscles. What is happening now in the AI revolution is not a multiplication of your muscles, but of your brain. And I think maybe just as a side note, maybe we should start measuring. We started measuring the amount of muscles that we can multiply as horsepower. Maybe we should start measuring the next GPT-5 in terms of brain power that we replace. But maybe that's something that's coming up in the next couple of iterations. All right. Okay, I have to click here. So what do startups do that have recognized that now the age of AI is about multiplying brains? And let me take a step back. A couple of years ago, when you went anywhere into any startup conference, there was a high likelihood that there was a startup pitching to you, and they said, you know what, we are the Uber for X, like the Uber for grocery delivery hero, or the Uber for walking your dog, Wag, or the Uber for babysitters. There was always a pattern, a template. We are the Uber for X. The same with Airbnb for X. It was a common thing to do. You took something that worked, put it in a different niche, and that worked. And I believe that there's now a new pattern that is coming, and a new pattern for startups to pitch their startup. And that is not Uber for X, but that is we are the AI-powered job that replaces Y, or amends Y. These are a bunch of startups that were just entered the Y Combinator. I'm sure many of you know. It's a well-known startup accelerator in Silicon Valley, where Airbnb, Dropbox, and Stripe started. And many of these startups, they do exactly that. They have this new template of a startup. They say, we are the AI-powered X, the AI-powered consultant, the AI-powered software engineer. We are the AI-powered sales team. And I could have filled this up with way more slides because that's kind of the pattern that is emerging. Startups are trying to look into some kind of job role and trying to be the AI-powered version of that. If I click one slip further, we can also follow the money. So there's a tremendous amount of money going into exactly these kinds of startups at the moment. It started quite low with 1 billion, I think is the scale here. And now we're at 21 billion, which is about the size of the NASA budget or the GDP of Iceland. And this is not even looking at the fundamental capital expenditures that companies like Microsoft and Google are pouring into generative AI and artificial intelligence. So we can probably say that this might be something that is going to take fruition. Maybe it doesn't replace people, but maybe it helps a person to become way more effective, have a bit more control, be more efficient, be more effective down the road. And I brought you one example. As I mentioned, I have a small podcast that I do, and if I started in 2019 when I was in San Francisco, and imagine I would have done these steps. This is about a step, all the steps that I would need to publish one episode of the podcast. If I would have to do this, in 2019, I would have done that all by myself, 5 years ago. And it would have cost me about 40 hours, which is a lot of time, which I didn't have, so I didn't do all those things. Now, in 2024, I started using virtually every task that I do is now either led or assisted by artificial intelligence in some way. And I don't think these numbers are exaggerated, but it has cut down the time I need to invest per episode, or someone else when I have a freelancer working on it, down to 4 hours. And that's a 10x efficiency increase in 5 years, which in my view is absolutely astonishing and mind-boggling in my view. So this is what these tools that are being founded in Silicon Valley can do to productivity. let's move to the second problem that German Mittelstand companies might have, but that AI might help to alleviate. It is that we are not investing enough into the people that we have. So the first problem was we don't have the people. The second is if we have the people, we don't invest into them enough. You can see a couple of rankings here. We're neighboring Peru and South Africa when it comes to the evaluation of the skills that we have, and we spend 25% less time than our American counterparts investing into digital skills. But I have a radical question for you. Do you even need digital skills in the age of AI? So this might be pretty controversial, and you might not, what is this guy talking about? But you're still here, so let me explain. So when I was in academia, I thought about the question quite a lot and hard. Why do some technologies get adopted and become widespread used, and why do other technologies fall by the wayside and are a total, just a flash in the pan, like the Segway? Remember that one, the thing that you see in malls or with cops? That was hailed as the mobility revolution, but is a total niche. And in the end, you can already see it on the screen, what it comes down to, and this might seem obvious, but I think it's interesting still to put in your forefront of your mind, is it comes down to two factors. The one thing is, how useful is it to you? And the other one is how easy it is for you to use. So let me map out a couple of technologies. Let's take, for example, 3D printing on the left. I'm sure it's incredibly useful to a couple of people to be able to 3D print, but I don't know where the heck to get a 3D printer. I have no idea how to use it. It's never going to be useful for me. The same with blockchain, NFTs. To be honest, I'm not sure if I ever really got the concept of the blockchain. It was hailed as the thing that's going to replace your passport. You can go into different countries. It has some use cases with crypto, maybe some NFTs if you squint your eyes, but for me it always was in the bottom right. Other things like quick commerce, that was the craze of the Corona times. I think it was super easy to use. You just opened the app, you could order it, the guy was there in 10 minutes, you got your food. But how useful was it really? I think at the end, the novelty effect wore off quite quickly, so it landed in this bottom right corner. Stuff like the smartphone and the genius invention of the touch screen were genius because it opened up a new world, it was super easy to use, and opened up the internet to you. So that's why I put the smartphone to the top right. In my view, AI tools are already super easy to use because think about it, the only thing that you have to use AI now is just not go to Bing.com or Google.com, but just go to ChatGPT.com or use Gemini or whatever. So it's super easy to use, and I think the usefulness is maybe still in the eye of the beholder, but it's increasing. I'll have an example later now. So if you kind of categorize this, I had a little fun with it. I think there's a hobby zone of technology. There's a death zone that are not easy to use, that are not useful at all. And there's culture-defining tech on the bottom, on the top right. And I think the smartphone is where AI tools are going to move as the usefulness scales up. So and maybe just to put this into perspective, sorry, I have to move around here. There we go. If you look at the revenue development of ChatGPT, it was a kind of obscure company that some smart guys in San Francisco founded, but it never really took off. It was only the introduction of ChatGPT in 2022, where this company that made $400 to $200 million, is quite a lot, but exploded in scale. So it really moved down the ease of use scale to really scale, and is now at $3.4 billion in run rate, only in Q2. So that's why I want to ask maybe a controversial question, is do you even need digital skills if the way that you use AI is not by entering a webinar or doing a course, but it's just this super sleek interface where you can converse in natural language? All right, let's move to the third problem that many companies have, small and large, but especially the German Mittelstand. I call it death by agency. So let's start with a typical corporate manager. Let's put her in the marketing field. Let's say she starts. What are our first 6 months going to look like? I believe she's going to enter into an ecosystem of agencies that is going to swarm around her. there is going to be marketing agencies, market research agencies, event planners, social media agencies. A lot of agencies are going to swarm around this person and say, you know what, we can do a great job for you with problem X. So she's going to be in the center of this crazy universe of agencies. Ask yourself, if you are this manager, marketing manager, and I pose 3 questions to you. Does this marketing manager even have an incentive to use AI tools if she can just outsource the job to an agency and has been doing this for quite some time? It's the standard of doing work. Will she accrue value by using AI tool? And the last question, what if ChatGPT or Google launches the revolutionary new iteration of their LLM? Is she going to jump in productivity, or is the agency going to jump in productivity? And I think for many companies out there, the answer is the agency will accrue all the value of the underlying technology. So I think this gives me pause to think, and I believe this goes to the mindset of how people in the corporate world view themselves. I think it needs to switch, it needs to change. From being an allocator of budget, who is asserted a kind of budget and expected to produce some kind of result, to an active leader, in this case in the marketing world, to an active brand leader. From someone who is a passive recipient of AI tools to someone who actively uses AI tools. And from someone who inputs briefings, who, if you think about it, you might make the case that they're not that far off from a prompt anyway. So if you input a briefing to an agency, why not be an iterative, why not use these briefings and talk to an AI agency that is iteratively, improves your work. So what I did is, a couple of days ago, so imagine if I were the marketing manager of a pharma company, I just built these three images, and what I found interesting is character consistency, something that I couldn't do last year. This is the same person, but imagine if I were pharma marketing manager working on some social media collaterals. I could have her be the person that is the doctor. This might be the pharmacist in the middle, and this might be a happy consumer of whatever cream I offer to the market, right? So this could be the same person, and I did this in 2 minutes, and I wonder, why don't we do that in the marketing field more? All right, let's move to the 4th and final problem that companies have when that might have something that might help, AI might help with them. Well, this is nothing new. Functions are super siloed, and let me give you an example of maybe a company I know maybe something about that offers recipes and baking products. So if there's a great performing recipe on social media, let's say the social media team went bananas and they posted something that really went through the roof. This got 12 times the amount of likes. If I would now go to the other properties and go to the website, I would not find that recipe online, even though it was a smash success in the social media world. And if I would go to the newsletter world, this would not have been sent out to people that like this kind of recipe, let's say muffins, or I think this was a kind of a pencil cake in a way. And why is that? I think this is nothing new. Why? Because many people, many companies show their organization to the customer. This is exactly what happened here. This is the organization. I have to always do this to see the image. Yeah. There's a social media team, there's a website team, there's an email team with their own KPIs, own posting schedules, own whatever, own managers. So they have their own little world. And this content that works doesn't kind of move over like a wave. It doesn't go to the website team. It stays within that silo, and it's great for the team, but it doesn't reap the benefits that it could have when it would have moved across the value chain, so to speak. So and now, this is, I think, where AI can come in. Because when I listen to founders, they often say, well, we want to build products that give us a marketing tool that reaches consumers at the right time, with the right message, with the right offer, but they're always going outward, right? Trying to give the perfect message to consumers and customers. I believe the same logic can be applied, 1 minute left, okay. The same logic can be applied to internal functions, because why not give the right message at the right time with the right information to the person that needs to make a decision? And I think this is what AI can do. AI can process data from different fields, that are differently structured. It can harmonize them, it can process them in a way. It can give you data out in natural language. So what it can actually do, it can crawl your stuff, your sites, your social media sites, your websites, your newsletters, see how they perform, and give out something that is not a dashboard, but something that is in natural language what people actually need. In this case, it would be, hey, did you know a recipe performed fantastically? Put this on the website, here you go. I think this is what AI can offer. So as I wrap, I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. We talked about 4 problems that not only Mittelstands companies, but a company of any size can have. And I believe there's a couple of actions you can take. I think we touched on a couple of them already. I think it's mainly about being curious, having a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset, breaking down silos, and this is super important, trying to make people heroes that are actually trying to do something. And this is something that we also try to do. And one final thought, if you allow, I know I'm already over time, but if you believe, let's go back to the Jeff Bezos from 1994. He thought there's something growing like crazy, which was the internet. If you subscribe to the idea that AI is something that is going to take off like crazy, maybe like the internet at the time, isn't your job as a corporate leader to put your boat into the rising tide and participate when technology scales, that your company also scales? Because I think in many parts, if you have now, if ChatGPT 6 launches, your productivity increases are going to be 0, but there's some startup out there who's going to jump in productivity just because the underlying technology expanded and scaled. All right, that's me. Thank you very much for your attention.